you all doing? Well, listen, I just want to say thank you for giving up your time. I know you've been here all day, and we are running a little bit behind, so hopefully that's not going to, the best to last. Hopefully that's going to live up to expectation. But you know, you've given up your day today, and this sort of really started. You heard what Dottie said, that she had Facebooked me on my birthday and had wished me happy birthday, and I responded. Some of you might have on my Facebook page done the same, and I actually went through and responded to every single person on Facebook. It took me 6 hours on my birthday. I won't be doing it next year, because once I started, I thought I'd be an hour, but then America woke up and they started all doing it, and I thought I can't stop now because they're going to think that, why didn't I get a thank you? So it took 6 hours out of my birthday to do that. So, and then people chat back, like Dottie, and so that takes longer, but that's good. And what I tried to do on Facebook and through this social media is that I try to keep it as real as possible, to touch the people as easily as I can, and the power of the internet, of social networks, really enables me to do that. So I got really lucky, because when I first had this idea for the film, you know, it was 2006 when I turned 40. I'm 46 now. And when I turned 40, when that 4 ended up in the front of my birthday, like going from 39 to 40, I had, for my birthday dinner the night before, I had been to a Chinese restaurant with my family and friends. I had ate enough Chinese food for all of China. I'd had, now I don't exaggerate, all right? I'm telling you, I had probably 8 or 9 beers, 2 bottles of wine, 2 packets of cigarettes, and enough Chinese food for seriously all of China. And of course, I woke up the next morning and I wasn't feeling $1 million. I woke up and I looked in the mirror, and having that 4 and feeling the way I did, you know, it was a real like boom, and it hit me. And I thought I was a really smart guy. Why? Because, you know, I left school when I was 17. I didn't do college. I didn't do that. I didn't get enough marks, you know, like your SAT's equivalent. I never got the score. So I went straight into the workforce, and I was a mail boy who worked my way up into the futures exchange floor, the stock market. I was doing day trading before it was fashionable, and I was making money. And you know, when you're making money, you're thinking it's all about money. And I'm thinking I'm master of the universe. You know, I'm 21, 22 years of age, and I'm pulling in all this money. And I was playing sport, so I could eat what I liked, but because I was doing the output and I was playing football, I was all right. You know, I was still lean, and, you know, I was okay, you know. But then I sort of decided that materialism really took over, and I wanted to build companies, and I was doing that, and then the sport, you know, hurt my shoulder in a football tackle, and all of a sudden, from about the age of 23, 24, bang, on came to the frame that I was like 160, 165, and then the pounds came on each year, 10 or 15, boom, 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 right up until I got sick when I was 32. I woke up with this terrible rash and my face disfigured. And I wasn't actually too far from here, believe it or not. I was actually down near San Diego at a Four Seasons resort called Aviara. Maybe some of you know that. I was actually in the Aviara Hotel when I first got my itch in my fingers and my face, and I was so like, this was like I was the elephant man looking in the mirror, and I just got on a plane and went straight back to Australia. I got on QF12 that night and flew back, and by the time I got into Sydney, I was disfigured and it was beyond belief, and it was the worst flight of my life, and I was admitted straight into hospital. And this is when I was 32, so you would have thought I would have got the message then, but I know, master of the universe, you know, they've got these incredible things called pills, and you take the pills, you outsource your health to the people in white coats, and all of a sudden you're good, but you're not really good. And as I found out pretty quickly, I thought, oh well, when I finish the script, like, you know, 2-3 days, maybe a week, you take this and then you're going to be good. Well, as soon as I stopped taking the pills, bang, out it came again. And this was like the first alarm was, well, hang on, how long am I going to be on these pills for? And they said, well, maybe 2 months. I thought, 2 months? Well, you know, okay, well, all right. Well, I've got to do what I've got to do. I've got to be able to function. So I kept taking the pills. And of course, the 2 months became 3 months, became 6, became 12, became 8 years. And I was really outsourcing my health to other people. I wasn't taking full responsibility. I had many starts, and I'm sure some of you in the audience can relate to this, the procrastinating, that I'm going to change tomorrow, and then you do something good for a couple of days or a week or maybe a month if you're lucky, and then all of a sudden some other more important thing comes along in your life. something that is a stress kicker. And so then I started to look at this. Why do I get stressed and what happened? And then, when I wrote the book that's outside, and it wasn't until I started writing the book, and believe it or not, this is after the film, that I really started to, when you write a book, you got to go back and you start really thinking about things. And it just dawned on me about a year and a half after making the film that really my addiction to sugar came from when I was in the playground. I was a big guy. I led a pretty sheltered life, if you want to call it, where everything my mum and dad told me to do, I did. I was a very good child. So I would always do what I was told. Now, that's good at home, but that's not too good in a classroom because, you're not cool. And so you get picked on. And you know what picked on? Like mocked or bullying. So I was the prime target. So I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was in 6 different schools from 1st grade to 6th grade. So starting off, I had to make friends, and that was hard. So really what happened was sugar became my best friend. So what would happen, I would have a fight or get picked on, I would go to the tuck shop or the canteen, and I would get sugar. After school, I would get sugar. And so sugar was always there. It was there to help me, pick me up, never let me down, never talked back, never put me down, lifted me up. So as I really realise now, is that whenever life got too stressful or there was some problem, I would turn to sugar. And I still do that today, believe it or not. Even with all the knowledge I have and all the experience, I find myself still doing that from time to time. So that's there, that's ingrained. I call that the cultural DNA of Joe Cross. And I think a lot of you can relate to that and feel that. So then, of course, I had to work out when I get 40, what am I going to do? Because I was fat, sick, and nearly dead. That's where the title came from. And the title didn't come till after the movie, but it was kind of like trying to be as honest as I could what actually happened. So I looked at this very logically. I'm a logical person. I'm not an expert. You've had some great people up here today. I'm not an expert. See, I'm one of you. I'm someone who was 320, 330 pounds. I was on medication for 8 years, night and day. I couldn't go anywhere without those pills. Had to have them. Wouldn't get on a flight without them because if my luggage was lost and I didn't have those pills when I got to the other side or that evening or the next morning, I was in serious trouble because my throat could swell up and I would not be able to breathe. I had to have an emergency tracheotomy on me. So it was quite a serious issue. It was a disease of touch. And everything in your life has to change. You can't hold babies. You can't pick up the shopping. I'm a big guy, right? Sex, everything. You have to change everything in your life when you have a disease of touch. Because the medication I had, that just got me through, but it didn't enable me to do what everyone else does. So if I was to, even on the medication, lift up furniture and move it around, my hands paid the price and they would swell up and I wouldn't be able to use my fingers and it would get into all of the joints. The fluid would go everywhere because my body was completely confused. It was trying to protect itself. The body was okay. It was trying to do the right thing. It thought that there was an invasion going on. So as far as this idea of what am I going to do? How am I going to actually, when the realization came that I was actually really stupid and I wasn't smart, that how many houses can you have? How many cars can you drive? How many watches can you put on? How many shoes do you need? I sort of had this, boy, how dumb am I? So I had 8 companies and I was like a serial entrepreneur. And I said, okay, I've got to get rid of these companies. So I sold 5 of them, kept 3 because I couldn't sell them because they were at that stage where they just couldn't be. So I kept them. But I just went basically to this point of just clearing the decks. And that took 12 months to do that. You just don't get up and do that overnight. And I also had to work out, what am I going to do? How am I going to? I didn't use these words then, but how am I going to reboot my life? That's what am I going to do? So I looked at it logically and I said, okay, well, let's look at the problems. Okay, number one, I'm sick and tired of people asking me when the twins were due because I'm sitting out there with this huge big belly. Now, because I'm a big frame, I'm 6'2", and most men, they'll tell you, they don't really care how they look. Men, the men I know anyway, don't really care about how they look. It's like, I got a bit of belly, but you know what, I tell a good joke or chicks still dig me, don't worry about that, that's fine, It's like, I'll be all right. But it's really, it's not about that. To me, it wasn't about that. It was about getting off the pills. So not only have I got this, I've got these pills that I'm attached to, I'm walking around with. So to me, it was 2 things I needed to fix. I needed to lose the weight, and I needed to get healthy. So what do? I tried so many things. And you saw in the movie how many things I had tried. I tried so many things. But you know what? None of them worked. I went on the diets, I did all these things, the witch doctors, I had them dancing around me, I had the ear I had everything. I tried it, trust me, because I kept paying for it. And I kept saying, you know, if someone could cure me, I'd give $1 million right now. I'd write the check, $1 million, if I could be healthy. And I don't know if you know people with a lot of money, but people with a lot of money who are sick, they'll write checks bigger than that to be healthy. I've got a mate of mine with a bad shoulder. He would write $10 million to get a shoulder back to how it was when he was a kid. It completely inhibits his life. And I was in this camp. So I sort of said, okay, let's look at this. I mean, let's treat Joe like a company. How I do what I do with the business, how about I focus on rebooting me? And really the logical thing I worked out is that the human body is this marvelous, incredible machine, organism that you've all been blessed with. And, you know, if I was to ask you, sir, what's your name?
Jim.
Jim. So I said, Jim, how old are you? You're going to tell me you are? 41. So what does 41 mean? It means he's been around the sun 41 times. That's what 41 is. But if I really ask you how old you are, okay, depending on what you believe, whether it's creationism or evolution, you're either 4 million years old or 8,000 years old, okay? Now, I'm in the former camp about evolution, so I look at you and I go, you're 4 million years old. You didn't decide to order 2 eyes, 2 ears, some hands, and, you know, some fair hair and be a male. You didn't decide that. You're a species. You're part of humanoids. You're a Homo sapien. You're at the end of all these Neanderthal, Homo erectus, all of this 4 million years of evolution to actually get us to become the most successful species on this planet. So we didn't have the pills back all then, even if you want to go the 8,000 year theory. We didn't have the pills then. So why is it that I'm unfortunate to be born now where I get this disease? Like, who did I catch it off? So I looked at it and said, all right, there's only 3 things that you can actually eat. Only 3 things that you can eat. Ready for them? There's one thing I want you to take away tonight is my theory on this. You can eat processed food, you can eat animal product, or you can eat plant food. Plant food is fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, whole grains. We all know what animal product is, and we all know what processed food is, stuff that's been cooked, okay? So, and refined and all sorts of things, right? So I sort of said to myself, well, what am I doing? Well, you know where I am? I'm what I call in the fun part of town. And you know what the fun part of town is? The fun part of town's over here in the processed world and the animal world. That's what I call the fun part of town. Now, the essential part of town is over here in the plant world. Now, we all know if you spend too much time in the fun part of town, guess what? Ain't fun anymore. And that's where I was. 95, 96, 97% of the caloric intake, the energy I need as a Homo sapien to live. That's where I'm getting my fuel, my energy from this world. So I went, oh, that doesn't really make sense because for 4 million years, you know what we ate mostly? We mostly ate plants. It was only in 8000 BC that the Romans actually start to farm sheep. It's the first time in human history that we farmed animal, only 10,000 years ago. So if you think about 4 million and 10,000 years, I know it sounds like a lot, 10,000 years, but go out to a running track. Take a 400-yard or 400-metre track and start at the beginning and start walking and do your 400 metres out. And if the beginning of time is the start and today is the finish, 1 yard out is when we started eating a lot of meat. 1 yard out. And about a third of an inch is how long we've been eating processed food for. Yet, today in America, 93% of the calories consumed are from the fun part of town, which is why we have these diseases of what I call nutritional ignorance. Heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, throw them all in. That's why we're all dropping like flies. If this was America, this side of the room, you're all dying of heart disease and cancer. That's it. 52% of you, on average, will die of heart disease and cancer. 10%, this slitherer down here, these are the stroke people all down here. 10% stroke. 5% Alzheimer's, 5% diabetes, and the list goes on, down, right down and down. And like, if you think it's like fun, like to live and then all of a sudden we've all got to die, I get that. But it's actually the quality of life you have in those last few years on this planet. The average American is spending more than 50% of what they spend in their whole medicine, everything they spend with healthcare in the last 6 months of their life. How much fun's that? tubes, having people wash you, coming in and cleaning out the waste. I mean, just think about how rude is it what you're doing to your family, having to come and visit you on a weekend. But you're in there doing it. And I haven't met a mother, and we're speaking to mothers, I have not met a mother that when I say, what do you want for your kids? You know what you want for them? You want them to be happy. That's what they say, I want them to be happy. You don't want them miserable on a weekend going and seeing mum and all that misery around that. No. You want to have the life. You want to be able to be energetic. And so I looked at this at 40 and I went, all right, 95%, 96% from this world, I've got to go 100%. I've got to go extreme here. I need to knock this on its head. I need to go back and embrace Mother Nature. I turn my back on her, like as a mother would when you were to run towards it. Would she open her arms and embrace me and help me? Now I learnt that 70% of all disease is caused by lifestyle choices. What we eat, smoke, drink, lack of exercise, how much stress in our life, what kind of sleep we get, will we hold on to anger, all these things. 70% of all disease caused by lifestyle choices. There's not a doctor who knows the world who will argue with that point. That's the experts. That's not a Joe thing. That's the experts. Just think about that. 70%. This country spends $2.5 trillion on healthcare. 70% of that is we're doing it to ourselves. We're real smart. So I said to myself, okay, I need to find out, is my disease, am I in the lucky group of being over here in the 70%, or I'm in the unlucky where the genetics and just what I got, I'm over here on the 30%. And the only way to find that out was to dial up my micronutrient intake. You see, the difference here is plant food is the only food that carries these things called micronutrients. You heard me talk about it in the movie. They're phytochemicals. They're captured sunlight. So when I take this piece of kale here, beautiful piece of kale, which I'm not going to eat because I don't want to shatter Dottie's opinion of me, but what's here, okay, this here is harnessing. I look at this, people look at this as a plant or as kale. I look at this as captured sunlight. Okay? This is harnessing light. It's harnessing energy. And when you either juice it, as in rip away the fibre, or whether you eat it, what you're mentally doing, or physically doing I should say, but I want you to mentally think about it, is you're releasing light into your body. Because as humans, there's 3 things we need to put in our body to stay alive. What are they? 3 things. We need to put in, water, yep. Air. Food. Exactly. Trick question, which one's the most important? Sorry? No one's got it right yet. They're all important. If you don't take any one of them over a period of time, you will die. There's one that's more immediate, right? What's your name, sir? Scott. So if I put Scott up here, and I block Scott's mouth and his nose and his airway, Scott's going to be laughing for about 20 seconds and thinking, oh, Joe's having a joke, I'm on stage here in the OC, right? You know, Scott's out there. If I'm holding it there for like a minute, Scott's going to say, I didn't get a big enough breath before this. 2 minutes, Scott's not thinking it's funny anymore, right? What's Scott going to be doing at 3 minutes, 4 minutes? What's he going to be doing? No, he's not. But before he passes out, he's going to fight. He is going to fight. Pardon? Way before then. He is going to fight. What's he fighting for? His life. He's fighting for his life. I tell you what, the mortgage, the problems, everything else in the life, that's all out the window. The most important thing for Scott is getting an airway. So he wants to live, okay? If I put Scott on a desert island with no water, how long's he got in heat? He's got maybe 2 to 5 days without water. In a more temperate climate, maybe 5 to 10 without water. If I put Scott on a desert island with shelter and with water, how long can he live there for with no food? Anyone want to take a guess?
2 months maybe.
How long? 2 months? Any more? 30 days? 90? Well, it really depends on how much breakfast, lunch and dinner Scott brought with him, doesn't it? If Scott was 500 pounds, he could be there for a year and be fine. He's brought everything with him. That's how we know that show Lost. You know Lost? We know it's all garbage, a TV show, because that big bloke, 7 seasons, never lost a pound. But for Scott, it doesn't look too bad to shape Scott. He's sitting down there. He might have the shirt out, the old shirt out thing. But I would say Scott's probably got 3 or 4 months in him without any food or water. I tell you what, he'd feel a lot better when he got home than he does. I'm sure he's healthy, but I tell you what, you go and do water for 2 months, you'll feel $1 million if you've got plenty on you. So if you start thinking about that, and you think about air, water, and food, well, it's the type of food we're putting in. So I started to look at myself, and I've been travelling around your great country for 5 years, nearly 5 years. In October, it's 5 years since I turned on the camera on myself. So we're not far away. We're 6 weeks away from 5 years, and I don't see fat people anymore. I haven't seen a fat person in 5 years. Do you believe that? No one. I haven't seen any fat people. You know what I've seen? I've seen a lot of people walking around with a lot of extra energy on their body. Because at the end of the day, all fat is excess energy stored up waiting for you to use it. Think about that. The airway, Scott's going to be dead in 5 to 6 minutes without air. If air is that important as food is, why didn't we evolve to have big airbags to hold up 12 hours of air on our back, like huge big mucus thing coming out? They can hold all this air. Why don't we have airbags, guys? Any reason why we didn't evolve to have air? Why is it unnecessary? Because there's plenty of it. It's in abundance. Never in human history was there ever a time, unless you were underwater, where there's no air. So we didn't go and live underwater. We live above water. And we didn't go too high where there was no air. We lived where there was air. But why do we have this ability to store fat, to store energy? Why do we have that ability? Because food was not always around. We had feast and we had famine. So the body knows how to protect itself, just like I need an airway, I want to stay alive. Your body's smarter. It stores the energy waiting for the lean times. Now, as anyone lives in the modern day world, there are no lean times. There's a feast on every corner. Everywhere you go, there's a feast. And it's all beautiful colours. All these candy, all imitating what? They're imitating fruit. There is a big school of thought which says that humans see in colour, because everything about you is survival, you see in colour because fruits and vegetables are colourful. Animals, most of them, your dogs, your cats, your horses, they don't see, and they see black and white. Why do they see in black and white but we see in colour? Because anything that eats one thing doesn't need colour to survive. They can just eat grass. They know they don't, horses don't eat anything else. Hay, grass, it's all the same to them. But humans, 1/3 of our brain is taken up with sight. It's taken up with the sight to be able to see. And that colour, the reds, the oranges, the greens, the purples, the reds, my beautiful fruit and vegetable rainbow, they all have this incredible thing to be able to see from a distance. The berries over there or the orange on a tree there, so that when you're out, the hunter-gatherers, where we came from, that's how we saw our food, our energy, our captured sunlight. So I went back and said, right, well, what I've got to do is I've just got to eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans and seeds. I've got to put all of that energy in, because these micronutrients, these beautiful phytochemicals, what they do is they feed our cells. And we only found this out in the 1990s. We didn't know about it before then. Do you believe that? Like 1930 is when we first discovered vitamins. Our A's, our B's, our E's, our D's. We didn't know about them before then. Same with these tens of thousands of different phytochemicals, only in the 90s. And they can take a piece of carrot, and they know exactly what's in a carrot. All the scientists, they can break down what a carrot is. And if you take all of those things individually in a synthetic form, even though it's exactly what a carrot is, it doesn't have the same effect on you as eating a carrot. And they don't know why. They still don't know why. But I knew, gut feel was logic, I need to put this fuel into my body and give myself a chance of ending up in the 70% group. So the idea was eat as much fruit and vegetables as I could. And then taking the idea of the feast and famine, well, I'm carrying around months and months and months of energy. I need to switch my body into a famine. So just drinking water didn't seem like a good idea. So I thought, I'm going to trick my body. I'm going to trick it. And the body, you can trick a body. You can trick it by just putting juice in. and then it'll think it's on a famine. Because if you strip out the fibre, and fibre is good for you, but I doubt that anyone went to bed last night with a fibre jar next to them for their 8 hours of sleep because they couldn't make it through the night without having any fibre. Okay? We are built not to eat. Yes, you've heard it here first. We are built not to eat. We have evolved to go through periods of time without eating. Now, if you don't believe me, look at all the big religions, not these new ones, the ones that are 2,000 years old. They all have some form of fasting in them. What do you reckon that's about? It's about that was all about getting some enlightenment, controlling the food supply, getting people prepared for when there was a famine on, that it'd all be fine. So has anyone, let's put your hand up if anyone's done a reboot, like done a juice-only period. Okay, so there's a lot of hands going up. All right, so you would have all experienced this, that you have gone through really bad time depending on what your diet was. Like if your diet was good, you didn't go through any pain. But if you're like me, where the night before I filmed the movie, like the day of the shoot, the night before, I went out and had sushi, I had a couple of beers, I had some ice cream. This was at 6 o'clock. Went to the hotel room, pacing up and down, thinking I'd never done this before, never been in front of a camera, I've never, looked at the clock, it was still 11 o'clock, I thought I could go for round 2. I'm not going to eat for 60 days. So I went down, had a cheeseburger, had a big chocolate sundae, another couple of beers, made it all in by midnight. And then I thought, hang on, if I was on the West Coast, it'd be 9 p.m. But no, I didn't. That was the mind playing tricks on me. So that was my stock up of energy, not that I needed it, on the night before I started filming. So is it any wonder why I was sick as a dog for like 4 or 5 days? I mean, I was shot to pieces because I'd put all this garbage in and then said, righto, you're on your way, son. Off you go. So if you have a poor diet going into a famine or a reboot or that, you would have experienced massive withdrawals from the sugars, the fats, the salts, the caffeines, the nicotines, the alcohols, whatever all those things are. In my case, everything above. And you will go through massive pain. But what happens after 3 or 4 days, guys? All of a sudden, no more pain. And guess what? No more hunger. Now, why do you think there's no more hunger? Why do you think that? Anyone want to take a guess why there's no hunger? No, well, it's getting what it needs from the juice, yes, but still, you're hungry for the first 3 days or 2 days, like you have hunger, like you want to eat. But something happens. And this is what I think happens, and you can't, this is the theory, is that if we were living like in 50 or 100 people at a time in a group, and there was a famine on, it was no good having everyone grumpy. So what the body does is it switches off and realises there's no fibre going, and it says, oh, hang on, there's a famine going on. Well, we know what to do. Let's switch off hunger. Let's turn hunger off so that this guy, Joe in this case, can have a lot more energy, get better eyesight, better hearing. Let's up all the senses. Why? Why are we upping up all the senses? Why are we giving this guy great sleep, all this extra energy, his smell, his touch? Why are we doing that? So he can find food.
Get together and kill that mammal.
Exactly. Get together and hunt the food. Mammal, exactly. But it was a lot easier to find plants, right, than actually catching mammals. And every now and then we did. But when you had 100 people, you're sharing it. You're not getting a lot of meat. But the berries and the fruits and the veggies, the nuts, the seeds, that was fine. So I looked at this and I go, okay, so we're out there, we're gathering, we're pulling all this energy in. It's like no fibre in the body. That's a trigger that says that the human body is on a famine. Which is why when people ask me about juicing versus blending, when you blend, you are outsourcing the chewing to a machine. Deep down in your stomach, just think about all these workers down there that are going to go and sort out all the stuff. Like when the food comes down, well, they're in there going, by crikey, he's been chewing this well, hasn't he? When you put a smoothie down there, because they don't have the enzymes, don't have to work, but they still have fibre. Because when you put a carrot and a banana and you blend it, you're putting everything in the system, so all the fibre goes in. So your body does not think it's on a famine. It's still good. I do smoothies, I love them. But if you're trying to achieve a point where you are going to get rid of hunger, then having the fibre is not a good thing. But fibre is a very good thing for our bowel, for a normal day, and yes, so I don't want you to walk out saying, Joe said fibre's no good. No, it's all relative. Which takes me to my next big point, which is what we do as human beings. We like to put things in the good category and the bad category. Who's guilty of that? It's good or bad for me. Who said this? This is good for me, this is bad for me. Everyone. So I would love, the second thing for you to do today is to take from me out of here and say, don't do that anymore. Don't do that anymore. That's what diet people and corporations and everyone, that's what they want you to do. I want you to think about where your dial is. What number are you at on those 3 things you can eat? Are you at the average like the American? At 7% of all your energy is only coming from plants? And 61% is coming from processed food and like 32% is coming from animal? Is that where you are? So my message is, I don't want to tell people what to eat. Like, I don't want to say don't eat that burger or don't have that piece of steak. I don't do. Who am I? Who am I to tell? We're sick and tired of people telling us what to do. Husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, kids, bosses, government. Who wants people to tell us what to do? This 2 feet here, this is the last 2 feet of freedom we have. There's not much else you can do in life, but you can decide what you're putting in your mouth and no one's going to stop you. I used to go on dates. I still go on dates, but what I used to do when I go on dates is that I would go on dates, and this is 100% honest. All right, up here is doing what I do. You've got to be in the house of mirrors. You've got to have a good hard look at yourself, and you've got to be honest. And what I used to do is I'd go on dates and I'd order a salad when I'm with the girl. I mean, I'm still 330 pounds when I'm eating a salad, right? Okay? I mean, you know, men's heads sometimes are really messed up. But I'm sitting there, and then we'd have I'm starving, of course. I'm having the salad. It's lovely, this salad, and one glass of wine, yeah, that's good, And then I'd drop her home, and what would I do on the way home? Go to pizza, get 2 big family-sized pizzas, go home, put the big bottle of Coke and watch late night television till 4 in the morning. That's what I would do, but I wouldn't let anyone see it. And this is what people do, seriously. And I got to tell you, I don't expect anyone to put their hand up now, but after I give this and talk it, how many people come, oh, that's what I do, I do that. Or I have the bar of chocolate under the bed. I have it right by here. And so, so I don't know where I was going with that, but what I was talking about was the dial. Okay, the dial. So I don't want to tell people what to do, but what I want people to do is to think about what number they're at. Because let me tell you this, is that if you want to end up like everyone else in America, you want to end up with those statistics and those numbers, then stay down there at 93 in the fun part of town and 7 in the essential part of town. And it is a guaranteed one-way ticket to that existence. And it ain't fun. $248 billion spent last year on pharmaceutical drugs. You know what it was 10 years ago? $104 billion. 10 years, 104 to 248. They estimate in 10 years' time, $600 billion. $600 billion on pharmaceutical drugs. That's $2,000 for every man, woman and child in the country. $2,000 a head. Where's that money coming from? Who's going to... hello, you've got to earn $4,000 to do that. So there's 2 big problems in this country. I mean, there's lots of problems and lots of great things, but there's 2 big problems. The health of the people, education of the people. And let me tell you, what I'm passionate about doing is fixing the health. Now, I can't do it on my own, and that's why you here tonight, you're all helping me, and you all help each other. You all inspire others. And it's not about telling people what to do, it's about leading from the top. It's about, by example, there was a lady, Heather. Where's Heather? Put her hand up, Heather. Heather's at the back. So Heather told me a story before I came in, and I've heard this, and Heather's a genius, because Heather's got the foresight. She always had a friend, and is your friend here, Heather?
Yeah, my friend
Jess. Jess, where's Jess? I say, Jess is here. How good on you, Jess? So Heather told me about you, Jess, that she said, watch this movie about juicing, and you said, what's the title? She wouldn't tell you the title because she was too nervous of saying it's called Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead because of what the response would be. Right. Congratulations. But it's because of someone like Heather sharing it with her friend Jess as to why Jess has now lost 32 pounds and she's on it, and now people, I'm sure, have been inspired by what you've done, and people are seeing that, and so on and so on. So what we are in the business of here at Reboot, and everyone in this room, at MIC and everything else, where I speak, you know what we're in the business of? We are in the business of increasing demand. That's what we do. Think about that. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, you know who they are? They're my friends. I love them. I'm in awe of what those companies have done. Yes, and I'm being very honest here. They have got distribution platforms, they have marketed well, they have done a phenomenal job, haven't they? They employ so many Americans, they give people a job, they get their They send people save. They go to kids, send the kids to college. This is what these corporations do. They are not the enemy. Trust me, they are not the enemy. We are the enemy, ourselves. We are the enemy of ourselves. When you go into a department store, or not a department store, a grocery store, and you buy a packet of Oreos, and I love them, by the way. I love those Oreos. I mean, I dead set would marry one if they could. Those Oreos, I love them, right? Those Oreo cookies, when I go in and buy I don't know what they cost, say $4, $5, whatever it is, I'm handing over my hard-earned money, and what am I doing when I take it off the supermarket shelf and I put the Oreos in my grocery store? What am I doing? I'm sending a message to the store owner, maybe I'm at Whole Foods, to put an order in to the Oreo manufacturer to bit more Oreos, and then the manufacturer gets an order that the Whole Foods in California wants this, and what do? They make more. Not the people at Oreos, they're good people. I'm sure the people who work there are fabulous people. They've got to put petrol in the car. They're Americans. Some of them, I'm sure, have got family members that are off fighting the wars for us. These are good people. They're not the enemy. When you vote and you put your hard-earned money and you buy those products, you are sending a message saying, give me more. So what I'm all about is if we're all going to McDonald's tomorrow and I get 30 million Americans going in and asking for a mean green juice, if that was to happen, and they did it the next day, and the next day, and the next day, what do you think McDonald's would do? They'd start selling the mean green juice. So this is a demand thing. This system is in place. This capitalism, I used to be able to say it works, but we've had a few problems, but the reality is supply and demand works, okay? There, I met the CEO of Robux. He's here. Steve, you put your hand up. So he owns 130 juice bars. Everyone know Robux? Robux juice? Right. So he's told me tonight that before the movie it was like 3 or 4 or 5%, right? Was that about the number? 3 or 4 or 5% of their total sales were the real juice, and 95, 6, 7% was the smoothies with the frozen yogurt and so on. But still got some fruit in it, but it's still, if you did the calculation, it's probably still 95% of the calories are processed, 5% of the other stuff, right? Their numbers are now over 10% nationwide of people that are switching more to the juice away from the processed, and in some stores, 20%, right? Some of the more educated areas, I'm assuming, are those 20% of sales. Now, that's unheard of, because when you go to Jamba Juice is 99.5 to 0.5. So the demand, we are increasing demand, and companies like Robux, what are they doing? They're ordering more celery, they're ordering more kale. If kale farmers are happy, everyone's happy. You know who's happiest? No? Not me. I just had that green juice. Who's happiest the most? Think about who? My who? Did you say self or cells? Exactly. She's good. Your cells are the happiest. Because when you put this in, it's the cells that are being fed. Think about the cells having a direct line like room service in a hotel. When they're hungry, they're hitting the button going, give us some food, Joe. Where are they ringing? They're ringing the stomach. What does the stomach do? Stomach growls. They get on the line, send a message to the brain saying, hey, Joe needs some food. So what does the brain do? Brain gets hungry. Brain starts salivating, get all the organs going, driving along the highway, see the golden arches. I'll get McDonald's, I'm hungry. So this is what I used to do. I'd go in there, pull in, get my Big Mac, my quarter pound with cheese, my cheeseburger, my large fries, my large chocolate shake, my Diet Coke, and a chocolate sundae. That was my meal, $16, right? I'd always say, I got a big family at home, mate. Yeah, it's all right, good, see you later. Right? Always had to throw in the families, not all for me, not all for me. That's why I would never eat in a store, I would always eat in the car. Right? Because you don't want to be, who eats like that? Only people in private. Trust me. People in private do, okay? So what's happening in my body then is the cells, right? They're all fired up and excited in room service because the delivery's been made, but not what you ordered. Inside the stomach, they're in there looking for the micronutrients. They found a bit of lettuce and maybe a pickle, and you've got to divide that up amongst 2 trillion cells. They're not getting much. They're not getting much to eat. So what happens after 2 hours, guys? Starving, hungry again. And who hasn't experienced that? Eating high processed food, what are you? You're hungry a couple of hours later, aren't you? You've had the up, and now you're on the roller coaster down. And when it's down, you need a coffee, you need some sugar, you need some fat, and boom, the overeating conundrum cycle is set in motion. And that's what happens. So the only way to break that is to take these micronutrients, put them in, feed the body, and think about it. If you are taking someone from 7%, and this is why I get asked this question all the time, why does this work, Joe? Why does what you're doing work? Now, it doesn't work for everyone. There is no magic bullet here, guys, okay? Think of me like a travel agent. I take you from in the woods or down in the valley where you can't see very well to the top of the mountain in like 10 days, 20 days, depending on how long. Usually 10 days you'll be on top of the mountain. I call it Human 2.0, where if you just take your 7 number of micronutrients up to 100% and only consume 100%, in 5 to 10 days, you are on top of the mountain, and boy, you love the view. Because you're being a human. Your eyesight works, your hearing works, you're sleeping well. Everything works properly. You're going to the bathroom, you're not having the mood swings. It's simple, life's simplified. You know what to do. You don't have to worry about what you got to eat or what you got to do this. And all of a sudden, you love the view. So now, because you're at 100%, when the time is over for your reboot, which is why it's not a diet, because you cannot live on juice alone for the rest of your life. It's not possible. That's unhealthy. Once again, the good and the bad, right? Juice is good for you, yes, but it's not good for you forever. So we've got to think about things in terms of a holistic approach. So after 10 days, 20 days, depending on how much energy you wanted to use up, some people don't need a lot of energy. They'll maybe 5, 10 days is plenty. Others need 2 months or 3 months of this, of taking their micronutrients to 100%. Depending on how sick you are, was how long you need to go. Once you've achieved that enlightenment, once you've got there, you're on top of the mountain, you love the view, and you go back and you start eating from the fun part of town. If all you do is put your head in the trough there and that's all you eat, pretty quickly you will fall from that mountain back to where you are and you won't feel good and you don't like it. So people who do that usually come back round 2, and then the next time they're smarter and they just incorporate a little bit where they're now having more plant food than they were before. And this is where I live. People say, what do you eat, Joe? Well, you know what? I'm at about 40% of all of my calories are coming from the plant group and about 60% from the animal world and from processed world. And I believe in the modern day, anyone who gets up and tells people, and this, the important thing is the telling people, don't have this, don't have that, I'd shoot them. I go, what, you telling me I can't eat? What that? And people switch off. If I said you can never have a hot dog again, I've lost them. They've gone straight away because they want to go with their son to a ball game and have a hot dog. I say go and have a hot dog, knock yourself out, enjoy it. Life's about having fun. But you know what? Maybe you might not want to do the bagel and cream cheese every day for breakfast. Maybe the pizza at lunch is overdoing it. And then having the hamburgers and hot dogs for dinner every night. You're going to end up like everyone else. So is it possible in the modern day to incorporate modern day food and still be healthy? Of course it is. But it depends on a very individual thing. If you are spending a lot of time in the plant world, then you can afford to have those other foods every now and then, can't you? But if you are the flip side of that, like where I was, it took me 5 months to get off my medication. 60 days of juice and 3 months of eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans and seeds, which you didn't see. You saw that if Phil never came along, you would have seen that. Because in the first movie I made, that's what we did. And then when Phil came along, and then I thought he was going to do like maybe, I didn't think he was even going to be allowed to do it when we got there, when the doctor said he could do it, and he did 10 days, and then he did 20, and then 30. I mean, it's sick. Phil wanted to do it. I had to stop. He was sending me broke. I said, Phil, you've got to stop at 60. We can't afford this anymore. Cameraman, the place by the lake. I mean, Phil was having a ball. Right? But we had to stop that. But what actually, if you think about this and what Phil did, Phil needed a lot more work, didn't he, at 440 pounds? So what did he do? He did it. And then Phil's story became, as you'll all agree, an amazing story. So I had to cut down the movie and redo the whole thing. And I knew when Phil called me that that was going to change my life. And now, I go around the world and I'm so lucky that I get to talk to hundreds and thousands of people about their bowel movements. It's fabulous, It's fabulous. Because what goes in must come out. And what colour should it be? Green, exactly. If it's brown, you know you're not in the 40 world. You're down here at like 5 or 10. Now, if it's brown for a couple of days because you're on holidays, that's cool. It's not about every day. It's about what you're doing over a long period of time. And of course, people say, Joe, you don't talk about exercise that much. Well, you know why? You know why I don't talk about exercise? Because you put the right fuel in, you can't help but wanting to move. And you don't need me to tell you or anyone else to tell you. You'll just move. It's a natural thing. Our body is built to move. That's what we do. We move. Also, when I walked in, over here is Annie, right? So, does anyone know Annie? Annie came up to me before, and this is what, fills my heart with joy. I run into people all over the world, or America at least, and Australia and New Zealand, and they come up to me and say, Joe, I've lost 100 pounds and my husband lost 100 pounds because of your movie. 100 pounds each. That's 200 pounds within the two of them. She showed me the before photos, the after photos, and now you're saying that your daughter is like 85% on micronutrients?
Yeah, I have a picture of her juicing with your Rebel.
Well, fantastic. So those sorts of things, we should give Annie a round of applause because... And now, so this is how we're going to solve that problem. We're going to do it one person at a time, and they're going to see the Annies of the world, they're going to see the Jesses of the world, they're going to see the Dotties, they're going to see all of you, and they're going to then follow. And this movement has only just got started. It's going to get much, much, much bigger, and there's a big tidal wave coming of awareness. And the web, and remember I said earlier in the beginning when I started to talk, I said that I got lucky. I got lucky because technology came along. In 2006, when I had that big Chinese meal and I smoked my last cigarette and I did all of that, when I did that, YouTube was only 9 months old. Okay? 9 months old YouTube was. Now, YouTube, it's like you've been around forever, right? And so I got lucky. I got lucky that technology, that Netflix wasn't even heard of, wasn't even Facebook, wasn't even thought of. The kid was still in high school, I think. So you've got this situation where there's times for things to happen, and my view is that it's time now where anyone watch that show Mad Men? You guys Mad Men? Anyone seen it or heard of it? Advertising guys, and what do? There's 3 things they do which I can't believe. Well, what do? They smoke and they drink and pat their secretaries on the bum. Well, maybe there's 2 things I really can't believe they do, right? But in terms of they don't do today. And so I look at that and I go, hold on a second. I think, this is my gut feel, that in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, and 20 is optimistic, but 30 really, people are going to look back and go, I can't believe those parents gave that food to their kids back then. I can't believe it. And I really believe that. And this awareness, this demand, it's coming, and America sets the trends, believe me. The reason I'm here, I get asked all the time, why didn't you make the movie in Australia? Well, I had to travel across the country. It would have been a very lonely trip going across Australia. There's like a couple of kangaroos and a koala bear, right? At least in America, you've got all the people, and they're so friendly and open and loving. You've got incredible people. Right? You're an incredible country. And it is. It's an amazing country, right? And when I came, you've got to remember that, the reputation of America wasn't too flash. Like what they were doing in foreign policy, and everyone was against America. And then you get here and you meet the people, and they're incredibly warm and open. I don't know if it's just because I'm an Aussie, but it's incredible. And they're friendly, and here you are as part of a group, and you're one of... So this is the place where innovation can happen in this country. And so I believe that the future looks very, very optimistic. I know all the stats talk about kids born today, and 1 in 3 are going to be a diabetic. I get all that. But I'm a big positive believer that things are going to change. And I think there's big industry and lots of money and jobs that are going to come with this health and wellness. It's health and wellness it's a funny term. I don't use the word cleanse, and I know it's a good word, but I don't use that because I'm dealing with Middle America. My team or my tribe is 250 million Middle Americans that are still trying to work out what that is. And so I believe it's a very simple process that what we need to do is come up with a simple message. You've only eaten 3 things. If you eat most of this, you're going to be better. You're going to lose the weight. You're going to be healthy. If you want to play over here, it's your call. You go ahead. But you know what? You're going to end up like everyone else. You're going to end up miserable, unhappy, and broke because you're going to be spending all your money on meds because they're going to get more expensive. So if I was to ask the audience, people here sort of under like my age at 46, well, you're 42, right? 41. Okay, I'm not going to, one more trip around the sun, I won't add it on. So how old do you think you're going to be if you lead a happy, healthy life? What life expectancy do you think you have?
Right, 90.
90, okay. Anyone think that their life expectancy is more than 90 here? Okay. Anyone think it's more than 100? Anyone think it's more than 110? 120? 130? 100? Now, you really honestly believe that you're going to live to 120, 130. I want you to keep your hand up if you do. Okay, if you really believe that. Okay, I do. I believe I'm going to live to 130. Now, people, this is the part of the talk where people think I've got 3 heads. Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that, all right? If I had been here 100 years ago, or 112 years ago, and I'd stood here and I'd said to you, this is before the White Wright brothers had ever gone up in the air and before anyone had ever flown, I said, you know what, in 69 years, 2 men are going to walk on the moon. In 69 years. Everyone would have said, I've got 3 heads. We weren't even flying yet, and we're talking about 2 men walking on the moon and coming home. In 69 years, we achieved that as a civilization. And really, America did it. America did it. So, what is going on in not too far from here in technology, in the advancement of science, about increasing our life expectancy and looking at old age, not as a natural but as a disease. And there are great people and there's fabulous things you can see at the TED conferences. Aubrey de Grey is anyone's heard Aubrey speak or watched what your Aubrey says. Aubrey thinks 850 for kids born today is not beyond the realm. 850, do you hear that number? 850, okay? He thinks that he said it to me, Joe, he said, you look after yourself, you keep your fitness, your health, you put the nutrition in, then you can get lucky and be at 130. Now, if I'd gone on how I was when I was 40, I was lucky to make 60. So we are at this incredible time in humanity. Incredible time. Some of you might have seen the Olympics, and we had a gentleman from South Africa run with the legs. Everyone see that when he had the... Okay. So, well, he's not Homo sapien. You see, I don't think he's Homo sapien anymore. We've evolved. You've seen evolution take place. He's Homo technology. All right? That's what he is, because this is the new evolution of humans. You've got to think about it. Like, you know, all this evolution. Tiger Woods, who is still a pretty good golfer, he had his eyes done, right? You know, that LASIK surgery. I mean, some of you here have probably had it done, the LASIK. I'm too nervous. But the LASIK surgery done, right? Well, we've used technology to advance his ability to be able to play golf. We are putting things in technology-wise that's advancing our civilization. So I believe, I'm 46, the next 20 or 30 years, the advancements that are going to come in terms of technology to help me stay alive longer and healthy, I've just got to be able to stay fit and healthy over the next 20, 30 years to take advantage of it. So you may not think I've got 3 heads anymore, but if that's not a challenge. Now, who wants to be 130 and be in a bed for 30 years? Nobody. But if you're playing singles tennis at 105, that's pretty cool. All right? You've got to start thinking about your retirement fund now too if you're going to live that long as well. So you really want to focus on saving those pennies. All right, so I've got a little bit longer and we're going to do a bit of a quick Q&A because what I want to make sure I've done is cover off. So we'll just do 4 or 5 questions anyone's got, and then we're going to wrap up the night. But I might have missed something out in my chat that you might want to know. Yes? Scott, yeah, well, we're going to do a microphone. I'll repeat the question, if you like.
I can talk loud.
Sure.
I have a friend whose daughter has the same condition you had. She's
Is-
not overweight. She's just in college now, but what would you recommend?
Okay, so we've got a friend, I'm going to repeat it, just be what we got. I've got a friend who has a daughter that's got the same condition, chronic urticaria, that I had, and your question is, what would you recommend for her?
Yeah, he is juicing and he's going to juice for her. Would you recommend
And how old is
anything
she?
to him? 22, 21.
Oh, okay. So, well, here's what I'd say to that, and I get this question a lot through Twitter and Facebook, right, is that you need to find out whether you're in the 70% camp or the 30% camp. Okay, is this genetics where it's just the luck of the draw? Right? No, well, we don't know the answer, right? No one knows the answer. The only way to find out is to put yourself as the guinea pig and give it a go. Now, it's not going to be harmful to her, okay? Sure. It's not going to hurt. We've got tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people now that have done this, and we don't have any problems because, why I articulated it earlier, we are built not to eat. We are built to be this way. Now, if you have kids that are you know, in their teenage years and developing, I'm not a big fan of juicing only for kids. However, I think that putting kids only on fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans and seeds is 100% fine. Now, I get asked this question, what are we going to do for kids? What about kids? And you know what I say? I say it all starts with the parents. It starts with the example. Mum and Dad can't be having pizza, throwing over bits of kale to the kids saying, eat that. Right? Not going to work. Not going to work. And I also get kids telling my parents saying, but my kids won't eat it. So I'm forced to give them this. And I look at them and go, why are you forced? Well, they won't eat. I said, good. Send them to bed hungry. I'll tell you what, after 2 or 3 days, they'll start eating it. Now, if you think you need to be locked up because you send your kids to bed for 2 or 3 days without food, well, go back in human history and lock up all of our ancestors because we were subjected to that, weren't we? Okay? So sometimes you've got to be harsh to be fair. Sometimes, if you talk about, or you're all mothers here, or most of you are mothers here, what's the best thing you give your kids? Best thing you give your kids is the knowledge of how powerful plant food is and the ability to share with them how to prepare and cook a meal that can keep them alive longer, happier and more vital. So that's what you can do for kids. But the short answer is 100%. Most disease, 70%, is caused by lifestyle choices. Now there could be lots of things. Could be the deodorant she's having, could be shampoo she's using, could be lots of things. So it may not just be food, okay? But the only way to really isolate that is to give it a go. That's what I'd say to her. Yes, any other questions? Yes, up the back. We need the microphone, I think. Do we need it for the tape or do we need it just for
the recording?
For the recorder, okay.
So how's Phil doing? And are you still in touch with him on a regular basis?
Sure. So Phil is going great. Phil is, you know, it's a funny thing, you know, when I drove across this country, I met 350 Americans is what I interviewed. And I really had no idea what I was doing. I'd never made a movie before, never been in front of a camera, and I literally had no idea. And it's a good thing I had no idea, because if I'd realised how hard it was going to be, I've done a lot of things in my life that are hard. Forget 60 Days on Juice. Making a movie is the hardest thing I've ever done. It is like nerve-wracking, frightening, every emotion goes into making a film. I shot 500 hours of footage. I get back to New York in an edit room with 500 hours of tape, and I've got to make it into a movie, and I've got to listen to myself talking all the time in my voice. You've got to watch yourself. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like going to jail. Seriously. You'd rather go to jail, rather have your toenails pulled out. And you're sitting there and you're watching, and then all of a sudden you've got to try and make it into a coherent story that people are going to understand and want to watch. Think about trying to make 5 minutes of YouTube footage that keeps people to watch it. It's really, really hard. So I had no idea. I went in there like, you know, blind, which is good because it wouldn't have got made if I hadn't had that blind. But when I did all those people, what I had to do was share my story first to have them open up. So my story usually took about 30 minutes, which you don't really ever see, okay? You never see it because my story is the beginning part, so you don't need to see that again. So what happened with Phil is that it was Winslow, Arizona. It was a Saturday, and I love American football. And so one of the things I was excited about while I was doing 7 weeks of juicing, right? It was like, actually it was more than, I think it was whatever, 8 weeks on the road, whatever I was doing. Was Saturdays and Sundays, I really loved watching college football and then American football, then the professional football, NFL, right? And that was kind of a time out for me because we worked really hard. And of course I couldn't watch the ads because they were all pizzas and burgers, and that's like food porn. I had to turn away and not look at that. Because that was the only time I ever got really hungry, was when I saw the Papa John's pizza. Papa John's, I never had it, but the cheese just melting off. Anyway, so Phil, being a truck driver, had a microphone in the car, and so the funny thing was, women loved talking to me when I was on the road with a camera, like women jumping out of cars, running across 3 lanes of traffic to talk to me, but men don't want to talk. Like, men are not interested in talking about their health. So the only way that I could troll for men was to go to truck stops, because that's where the men were. So that's where you'd find me running up and down with a camera guy and a sound guy up between the trucks. And because I didn't realise this, they've all got CB radios. They're saying there's some maniac Australian staying in your cabin like this. So I'm like, this place was busy before we got here. Now it's empty, right? They're all in their cabins. So I was tired. I wanted to go back and watch the football game. And Daniel Marinchek, who's a cameraman, who I might add, the incredible thing about making this film was that everyone who was on it started to juice and eat more. And like Daniel lost like 20 pounds on the road with me. You know, he's a camera guy, right? So they're all fanatics now, of course, you know. And so Daniel said, come on, Joey, one more. Let's do one more interview, and then you can go and watch the footy, you know, like 5 o'clock or something, 4 o'clock. And I went, okay, one more. And if you'd noticed that day I met Phil, it was raining, it was overcast, and I've rugged up. I've got like 4 or 5 layers. And I saw this little head in the cabin. I didn't even know it was big. I just saw a head in the cabin. And if you notice when you look at it again now, you'll see we're actually between trucks when we first talk. And I had to bring him out to be in front of the truck to get the scene. And so I never thought much that any of these people would ever contact me. I gave them my card, I gave them my number, and now that was December of 2007. Okay, so it was like around day 50 odd, because I'd made my way across America and I'm in Arizona. So I took him over, and you see most of everything what happened, like after I finished talking and telling my story. And we went and did his first juice. And if someone had told me at that moment in time that this bloke was going to change everything with the movie and he was going to be the guy that was going to walk through the door for Middle America, I would have not believed it, because I'd already spoken to that stage probably 300 people. And I'd met so many Phils on the road, okay? And so then, if you think about December, now hold that thought until May next year. May next year, I'm in Australia, it's Mother's Day, and my mum now is loving the new Joe, who's not on medication and 100 pounds lighter. And she's like, go and get that iPhone thing, because they weren't in Australia. Show the fat photos to Arnie so-and-so, and show the fat... So, you know those photos I was showing in the movie with, and so I go to get my phone, because I don't have my US phone on in Australia. I have it off because I'm in Australia and the roaming charges. So I turned my phone on, and up came this voicemail, and I just dismissed it. And then I showed Mother's Day the photos, and they all had a big laugh and all this. And the movie, you've got to remember now, the editing process is going on, because we're 6 months after we finished. I'm 3 months off medication. So we're now making this movie, which has Joe going across America, 6 average Americans that are doing 10 days each, which some of you might have seen in the special features and the extras. And we're doing this, and it's all probably going to end up in yoga stores. The movie's okay, all right? And then there's this voicemail. Now, if you notice in the movie, I actually grabbed my camera when I actually first saw, listen, I got chills coming down the spine when this bloke, Phil, and I didn't even know who Phil was, obviously, because I've met so many people, I couldn't connect who it was. And then I realised, afterwards, I'm going, hang on, Phil, he's the truck driver, right? He's the truck driver. So it got me after I heard it, and so I went and grabbed the camera, go out to my balcony, and I filmed that direct, because you've got to be real. I'm not an actor, you've got to put it all real. So then I thought, well, Phil's not going to do any more than 5-10 days, as I said earlier, the doctor. And you'll notice I got there and I gave him the juicer and I said, right, you're on your own. I'm not going to be, the guy coming in. You're either going to do this or you're not, okay? You've seen me do it. He's one person following, and he, 6 months to hang on to my number, 6 months before he made a call. And I've since learned that he would get it out, he'd ring, he'd stop, he's embarrassed, but he got to a point where he needed to do it. So obviously there's a strong connection with Phil and I. But I wanted to make sure that I keep my distance, and I didn't want this to be and the guys who helped me make the film, they're like real hardcore documentary people. You can't lie, you can't do anything dishonest, because we're trying to tell real stories. And so we had to make sure that Phil didn't, Phil wanted to eat something, he could. There was no don't do that, Phil, you do what you want to do. And he kept going and going and going, and then we started to, edit the movie and change it, and then the footage was coming in, and Phil's lost this, he's lost. Now he's kept going and going, and then he wasn't in the shirt, and I thought, so the whole 1 more year goes by before we got that amazing shot of him running down the street in the green and gold shirt, which is the money shot. I mean, it's an incredible shot, and I don't mind saying it. I think it's one of the best endings to a film ever, and that, even though it's my film, I really believe that. Because, I cried when I saw it in the edit suite when it came in, And so, a quick side story, I don't want to keep you too long, but Phil came in to watch the movie for the first time before we released it. And, you got Phil's big part of the story now. He didn't know how much of the story it was. And he comes into town, and when he came in, and we're sitting there, and no one's watching the movie, we're all watching Phil. And when that scene came up with his son Austin in the very first part, Phil just broke down and started crying because now he's obviously really healthy and fit because he's watching the movie, but just seeing himself and he's crying and, you know, we're all thinking he doesn't like the movie, but he was crying with joy, the fact that of what had actually happened. So obviously there's a strong connection. Now what I try to do is not necessarily be in people's lives like that because they've got to live, and I wanted to keep it real. So we communicate via Skype once a month, we email. I told Phil, I said, mate, if you do the right thing, I'll look after you down the track. I didn't want to give him any money, nothing like that. I bought him a car probably about 2 years ago because he needed a car to sort of stay in his town. So that was like, I gave him 15 grand for a car. And then the next thing I did for him, which is just recently, which you'll notice in the new movie that I'm making now, we'll see Phil in the next film, and just a little bit, he's not going to be a big part because Phil's like, you know, he's on the path. He's becoming a health coach and he's doing the IIN. So he's going to now take that message and pass it on and inspire others. And so, you know, he's studying basically now. So we're putting him through a scholarship at Reboot to be able to do his study and then, you know, go on and pass on. So that's a long answer to how Phil is. So Bear had another heart attack. Oh, sorry, no. Yeah, no, Bear is going better. He's down to 2 medications, so he's going well. Austin and Phil have a great relationship now, so that bond's been brought back. I think that what I was saying was their father had a heart attack, right? He's still alive, but he had a heart attack, and that was pretty tough, touch and go for a while. But you know, as you saw, his dad wasn't going to do it, but that's okay. You know, each to their own, and you can't tell anyone what to do, can you? All you can do is lead by example, and the worst thing you can do is tell people what to do. You start telling people what to do, ain't going to work. You know, in all my travels around America, I've never had to tell anybody that they're carrying around too much energy. No, everybody knows. People get out of the shower in the morning, they have a look in the mirror, and they're either going to be really happy with what they see or they're really depressed. And unfortunately, today, more than half are really depressed with what they see. I know women and men who get mirrors out of their houses. They don't even want to see themselves. They're that depressed. Well, as we all know, when you start putting the right fuel in, 2 or 3 days in, what happens? You're on fire, and you start looking in the mirror, and that positive affirmation, you're on fire, you're great, that is a great way to start your day. Much better than starting your day on what happened to you. My God, look at you. How bad are you? Look how ugly you are. You think about it, if you had your partner come in and start that, they wouldn't last 5 minutes, but we do it to ourselves. So I think that, you know, there's a big part of leading by example, and you know, it was me who did it to Phil, who did it to his community, to others, and you know, the story goes on. Yes, we have. I've got time for 2 more questions, I think. Okay. So up the back, yep.
Okay, I'll try to do my best here. Okay, so if you wanted to do a juice cleanse like once a quarter, like 4 times a year, and you have all these toxins stored in your body, and then you want to do a juice cleanse, let's say like 3 to 7 days, how can you prevent the sickness? Because a lot of people tend to get sick when they're cleansing, and it's kind of passed on like, oh yeah, that happens a lot. And then there's other people that know like how you can do certain things to help your body absorb those toxins and flush them out in ways that you don't create sickness from it.
Right. So, okay. So this is the way that I logically look at this. Your body is detoxing every second of every day. When you breathe out, when you perspire, when you go to the bathroom, you are detoxing constantly, no matter how healthy or unhealthy you are, okay? In terms of the idea of what you're calling a juice cleanse and I call a reboot, is to whether you're going to actually go and juice up a whole lot of plants for a period of time. Anybody who does what I did in the movie and goes straight into juicing after eating high processed food and animal product is crazy, because you've got no fibre to help that crap, and I mean it is crap, get out of the bowels. You've got no way to evacuate it, have you? So the best way for people to do a reboot is to look at their life and go, okay, you know what? I want to do what you said. You want to do 1 a quarter. So the question is how much energy am I carrying? What do I want to do? First thing first is to eat plant food for 5 days before you start juicing. You want to clear the highways out. You want to get all of that high fibre, fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, whole grains. Get all that in. Go through the pain of the withdrawals while you're eating, right? Have some brown rice and have some, you know, beautiful avocado, and do, you know, you saw amazing food that was up here earlier. Do that first so you get your body ready. Then when you start your juicing, you're going to be fine. You're not going to go through a lot of pain. You might be hungry, like we said, but you know, you can get through that. So that's the first tip. Anybody who needs to do this 4 times a year and they're getting sick every time, I want to know what they're doing in between them that's causing that. So it shouldn't that shouldn't occur. Definitely some people take 2 or 3 goes at this before they come off and realise, okay, that was really stupid how I went to that party and ate all that stuff on the day that I finished juicing for 30 days, because they'd spend the whole night on the toilet. Because it's pretty obvious, when you break a famine back in the old days, you didn't go to a wedding and have all of that cake and everything, did you? You started by eating fruits and vegetables. So any fool can fast. Only a wise person knows how to begin or end a fast. So it's very critical what you're doing at the end and at the beginning. So it really comes down to, when I say 15 days, 15 days is a lot to give up other food, those other fun parts of town. So 5 days of eating plant food, 5 days of juicing plant food, and 5 days of eating plant food. 15 days, that's only 5 days of juicing. Start on a Wednesday, means the juice part's the Monday to Friday. Do it with some friends. Community is so important when it comes to this. You try to do it on your own. A lot of people fail by themselves, but if they're in a group and people are doing it together, it's much more fun, much easier, and you can succeed. You're welcome. We've got time for one more question, and here it is here, and then I'll be outside and I can answer any personal questions that you've got or anyone else. We're going to need the microphone, sorry.
I just wanted you to speak a little bit more about juicing versus blending. Like, can you do a 30, 60-day mix-up juice and blending?
Sure, you can do anything. But you can, right?
Right.
Now, it depends. Here's the thing, okay? See this bit of kale? Is this alive or dead? Or is it somewhere in between? It's somewhere in between, isn't it? When it was cut from the soil, its life force from what was cut, from bacteria. This is slowly dying. It's got life in it right now, it's got energy in it. It's slowly withering and dying. What is eating it? Bacteria is eating it. Bacteria wants to eat the micronutrients. Doesn't want to eat the fibre, it wants to eat the micronutrients. There's only 4 real life forces on this planet. Microbes, like bacteria, insects, animals, and us. And guess what? We all want this. Every single one of us want this. We all want the micronutrients. That's what life is. So whether you're going to juice them or blend them, I'm really excited that you're getting them into the body. Okay? Now, if you wanted to blend food and do soups and all of that, knock yourself out, fabulous. But here's the catch. You're going to need to have 2,000 to 2,000, depending on who you are, but someone like me would need to have like 2,000 to 2,200 calories of blended food a day to not be hungry. If I have 1,200 calories of blended food a day, I'm on a low-calorie, in inverted commas, diet, aren't I? I'm on calorie restriction. When you're on calorie restriction, you're hungry. So on day 27 of calorie restriction, because I'm putting the fibre in, I'm going to be miserable and hungry. I'm still going to be getting nutrients, but I'm going to be like, I'm hungry. When you have 1,200 calories of juice, hunger goes away. See the difference? So if you're someone who's lean and doesn't want to lose a lot of weight, then blend and juice up to 2,000 calories and you won't lose weight because it's calories in, calories out, right? So do that. But if your idea is to lose the extra energy that you're carrying around and you want to lose extra energy, when I did my 60 days, I got on the machine, I lost 82 pounds in 60 days. And I lost 70% of that was fat and 30% of that was muscle. Okay, because you will burn muscle when you juice only. And unfortunately for women, it's more 60-40, males 70-30. Okay, and where does it come off first? Where does the weight come off first when you do this? Anyone notice it? Comes off the extremes. Face, hands, feet, moves to the knees, elbows, shoulders, hips. Unfortunately, this is the last part. Why is this the last part? Logically, let's keep the energy close. The body's trying to keep you alive. Let's keep it near the vital organs. If you lost your arm, at least you've got the energy on. You don't want to store it all out there in your hand, out there at an extreme, right? You get a blockage here, you can't get the fuel to where it's needed. So your body's made up of 5 things: a skeleton, organs, fat, muscle, and fluid. You can really only control 2 of them. You can't control your skeleton unless you get the saw out, but you can control your fat and your muscle. That's the storage of energy. That's where it's stored. So when you do something that, and I hate the word diet because what a diet is really what you're going to eat the rest of your life. That's a diet, not a diet where you do this or do that. That's why I call it a reboot, because a reboot is taking your micronutrients up to 100%, and then when you come back, you decide what works best for you. So can you blend and juice? You can. Personally, if I did that, I would need to have a lot more. And nowadays, I do that. Like I don't sometimes juice only. Like some of you might have seen on Facebook, I just did a 15-day juice only. I juiced only for 15 days. Felt fabulous. But, you know, I don't need to do them all the time. And I think doing them too much isn't necessarily good, because like anything, too much of anything is not good. So looking at things in the good and the bad category, once again, is a hot dog good for you or is it bad for you? It's neither. It's food. It's energy. Has it got a lot of nutrition in it? No. But is there a bit of fun attached to it? Yes. If you have been having a lot of plant food and you want to be at 60-40 or 50-50 and you've been good, have it and do it without guilt. Have fun. Okay? Have fun. And that's really what I wanted to try and get that message as I wrap up tonight, is that, you know, I think that at the end of the day, we got to try and take a bit of pressure off ourselves, not be so hard on ourselves, because we are our own worst enemies. And that if you get caught up too much on measuring this and or that, and this is, I heard that, and I saw on YouTube that this coffee's good, but I don't have it, you're going to send yourself into a spin. We have become the most successful species on this planet without all of those things. We are simple species. We eat 3 things. Just try and eat more plant food.